Mexico unrest continues as we start streaming at 5:30. Flights are grounded, highways are blocked after Mexican forces killed the country's most wanted cartel boss. The terrifying moments for travelers force off buses and the impact on upcoming World Cup host cities. Tariff turmoil, the president pushing back after a major Supreme Court defeat, the new legal move that could keep those global taxes in place, and what it means for the billions already paid. Winter wallop, a blizzard is slamming the Northeast tonight with feet of snow and near whiteout conditions. The travel ban's now in effect at this hour, and why even Broadway is going dark tonight. Water main break, streets are underwater, and businesses are shutting down in parts of uptown New Orleans. The damage left behind and the emergency warning now in effect. Not guilty, the son of director Rob Reiner waives his right to a speedy hearing. The latest on the charges and why the judge is keeping him behind bars. Honoring history, a major milestone as Iberville Parish celebrates Black History Month, where you can go tonight, and the historic Voice headlining the event. Saturn's mystery. Scientists believe they finally figure out how one of the most famous moons in our solar system was formed. Tonight, the massive collision that may have created Saturn's iconic rings. And fire and ice. Jeff Morrow standing by with a red flag warning and a big change that is on the way.
You're watching WAFB's streaming newscast, live and local, with Dion Guillory. This is 9 News at 5:30.
We start streaming tonight at 5:30 with the latest from Mexico. American tourists in parts of western Mexico are stranded tonight after the death of a notorious cartel leader, triggering widespread violence. Several airlines suspended flights to cities like Puerto Vallarta and Guadalajara. The unrest erupting after Mexican forces killed El Mencho, the country's most wanted cartel boss and head of the Jalisco New Generation cartel. U.S. officials say American intelligence supported the operation. Now, in the aftermath, suspected cartel members torched buses and businesses, blocked highways, and clashed with security forces across multiple states. The U.S. State Department is urging Americans in affected regions to shelter in place, avoid crowds, and monitor local updates as disruptions continue.
One of the women who'd been on the bus ran up to the shuttle and asked if she could get in. And of course, we let her in, and she explained that they'd all been forced off the bus by armed men who were going to light the bus on fire. We took her in our shuttle and we tried to go back in the opposite direction, actually to go back to our Airbnb, and we ran into another car on fire.
The U.S. Embassy in Mexico telling Americans who are in that country to continue sheltering in place tonight because of ongoing security operations there. Karen Wah has the latest from Mexico City.
Social media footage captured the panic at the Guadalajara airport Sunday as plumes of smoke could be seen outside.
You saw the ground workers running around, going inside, like trying to hide.
Juliana Perez, who made it back to Houston, described the cartel-related violence she saw.
It's not unusual in Mexico, just didn't think anything of it. Kept going, saw another car on fire, like, okay, that's kind of weird.
Guadalajara was one of many areas that erupted in violence Sunday, as Mexico's most notorious drug cartel fiercely retaliated after Mexican special forces killed their leader, Nemesio Ruben Oseguera Cervantes, widely known as El Mencho. The cartel he led has the highest cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine tracking capacity in Mexico, according to the U.S. State Department. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum urged calm Monday
Amanecimos sin ningún bloqueo en ninguna de las carreteras.
And said the hundreds of roadblocks set up by the cartel across the country had been cleared. Many American tourists remain stranded in Puerto Vallarta, including Adrian Moorfield and TJ Perry.
You're kind of there indefinitely.
There were no outgoing flights until Thursday. That does not take into consideration whether or not roads will even be open, the airport will be operating again.
The violence in Guadalajara comes just a few months before Mexico's second largest city is scheduled to host FIFA World Cup matches. Karen Hua, CBS News, Mexico City.
Leaders in Washington and around the world are reacting tonight to President Trump's Saturday announcement that he's raising global tariffs to 15%. Now that's up the 10% he imposed just a day earlier. The back-to-back tariff announcements coming after the Supreme Court ruled Friday that the sweeping emergency tariffs Trump imposed last year are illegal. But the High Court's ruling only applies to the duties Trump imposed using one specific law, and the president immediately responded by saying he will now rely on other legal authorities to keep tariffs in place. As for the tens of billions of dollars U.S. companies paid after the tariffs were raised last year, Democrats are demanding the money be refunded. Meanwhile, Louisiana shrimpers are fearing the worst after the Supreme Court struck down President Trump's tariffs. Charles Robin Sr. is a seventh-generation shrimper in Lower St. Bernard Parish. He says Friday's decision rules out the large tariffs that have been in place against imported shrimp, and that as a result, imports will be cheaper again, making his product less attractive, and he says all he wants is a fair shot.
We don't have enough shrimpers to really get to the demand, but they're taking these imported shrimp and they're not good for the people. They put 30%, 50% tariffs on them shrimp. It puts us in the same playing field as everybody else.
Robin says until corporate investors start investing local, the local industry will likely struggle to keep up. Well, happening now, a water main break in New Orleans damaging some streets. Several blocks flooded with water, reportedly approaching the doors of nearby businesses and parked cars. Take a look at these images. The flooding has prompted a boil water advisory for the area, as well as some school and businesses closing along Claiborne in the uptown area of the city, including a laundromat and a nearby car wash. Now to the weather. Today was cooler, and tonight we could see a freeze in parts of our viewing area. We're also dealing with some issues with fire warnings. Jeff Morrow standing by with the latest. And Jeff, how long could this chillier weather stick around?
Well, tonight's forecast, steadily falling temperatures. We're going to be dropping down rapidly through the 50s and 40s, ultimately dropping down into the 30s here locally. So expect the jackets to be in order for any evening plans you have on this Monday. And as we get out the door for Tuesday morning, a brief light freeze is going to be possible. Areas along and north of the interstate corridor, you can see some upper 20s for areas north and east of the capital city. We should be 47 for this time of year, so well below average in terms of these types of temperatures. Bottom line, though, we've got to take care of the people, the pets, and the plants tonight leading into Tuesday morning as we await the arrival of this light freeze. People and pets, our loved ones, we're going to take care of them area-wide, even if you're not under any freeze concerns because of how cold it is going to be. Freeze duration, though, anywhere from 0 to 6 hours across our area, so not cold enough or cold enough long enough for the pipes to be an issue. For those plants, though, yeah, if you have some plants that are trying to bud or have already bloomed, you want to try and cover those, bring them inside if they're in those hanging baskets, or at least bring a heating element to try and help keep them above freezing as we go overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. We'll talk about a warming trend and our next chance of rain coming up in just a few minutes. Dion?
All right, Jeff, thanks. Well, as we continue streaming here at 5:30 on the East Coast, New York City and New Jersey announcing travel bans. Airlines canceling thousands of flights, and even Broadway shows were canceled as a fierce winter storm bearing down on the northeastern U.S., prompting blizzard warnings from Maryland to Massachusetts. Take a look. The National Weather Service says many areas could see 1 to 2 feet of snow along with strong winds and near whiteout conditions. Visibility in some spots may drop to a quarter mile or less. Officials across the region are urging people to avoid travel if possible. Blizzard warnings are in effect for New York City and Long Island, as well as Boston and coastal communities from Delaware to Massachusetts. States of emergency have been declared in multiple states as crews prepare for that storm's massive impact. Looking ahead to tomorrow, it marks President Trump's State of the Union speech, where he'll give a victory lap of his presidential accomplishments. One of those accomplishments, those tariffs. You know, you remember that? We talked about that earlier. Well, we remember they took a major blow last week after that Supreme Court decision. Now tonight, Molly Martinez is taking a look at the tariffs' impact on your morning pick-me-up.
Like many good stories, this one starts with a fight. A week ago, I bought this cup of coffee. 8 ounces of black coffee came out to a staggering $5.63. That's 70 cents an ounce. That's like printer ink prices. I put it on Instagram. The business, who declined an interview, answered with this. It's crazy, but we pay 18% rent, 44% labor, 30% food cost, Also, coffee is all single origin, which has increased 40% in the last 12 months. They say the store is barely breaking even. Back in April, on Liberation Day, when President Trump announced the tariffs, he made this promise.
More production at home will mean stronger competition and lower prices for consumers.
There's one problem. The United States, with the exception of Hawaii, doesn't have the climate to grow coffee beans, so we rely on imports. According to NerdWallet, coffee import prices from Brazil and India have risen 50%. Vietnam, Thailand, and Nicaragua, nearly 20%. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics show the average pound of coffee costs $9.14, which is up 41% from a year ago. Michael Negron from the Center for American Progress explains businesses are getting roasted.
Once that business pays that tariff, they then have to decide, am I just going to eat the cost of this tariff, or do I need to charge whoever I'm selling it to?
A cup of coffee might seem like a drop in the bucket, but Negron explains it's boiling over.
The kind of weekly expenses of groceries and gas and utilities, these are all things that get in the way of whether you're saving money.
According to a January Wall Street Journal poll, only 9% viewed the economy under President Donald Trump as doing excellent, whereas nearly 60% viewed the economy as doing poorly. In Washington, I'm Molly Martinez.
A number of Jeffrey Epstein survivors are also expected to attend President Trump's State of the Union address tomorrow. According to sources familiar with the matter, survivor Danny Bensky will attend as a guest of Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. The brother and sister-in-law of late Virginia Giuffre will also attend. She was one of the most prominent accusers of Epstein and his accomplice, former socialite Ghislaine Maxwell. A federal judge announcing she is permanently barring the Justice Department from releasing a report related to the president's classified documents case. Peter Zampa breaks down what all this means.
Judge Eileen Cannon, a President Trump appointee, telling the Justice Department it cannot release a final report compiled by former special counsel Jack Smith in a case against the president. This report, describing President Trump's efforts to store classified documents at Mar-a-Lago after his first term, is now under permanent seal. President Trump was indicted in 2023 on 37 felony counts, alleging he mishandled classified documents and obstructed government efforts to reclaim them.
If I have any regret, it would be not expressing enough appreciation for my staff.
Special counsel Jack Smith brought the indictment. However, this case was later thrown out by Cannon, saying Smith's appointment was unconstitutional. Because of what the court calls Smith's defective appointment, Cannon views any report compiled by Smith to be unlawful. Cannon dismissed this case in 2024, but Smith still compiled the report. Now, Smith did release a final report in 2025, just days before President Trump took office for the second time, but that was in the 2020 election subversion case. In this classified documents case, again, we are not going to see that final report unless a higher court overturns Judge Cannon's decision. Reporting in Washington, I'm Peter Zampa.
Late movie director Rob Reiner's son entered a not guilty plea accused of killing his parents. 32-year-old Nick Reiner, accused in the stabbing deaths of his famous father and mother late last year in their LA home. He could go to prison for life or face the death penalty on 2 first-degree murder charges. Prosecutors have not said if they'll seek the capital punishment. Reiner also waived his right to a speedy preliminary hearing today. That hearing is scheduled for April 29th. The judge did not grant Reiner bail, and he will remain behind bars until that hearing. Now to an update. Greenland is declining President Trump's offer to send a hospital boat to its island territory. President Trump taking to social media Saturday to make the offer, saying the boat will, quote, take care of the many people who are sick and not being taken care of there. But it's unclear who exactly the president was referring to. Greenland's prime minister replied by telling Trump that Greenland has a public health care system that is free for citizens and that is a fundamental part of their society. Olympic skier Lindsey Vonn is finally out of the hospital. In an Instagram video, she credits her doctor with saving her leg after her massive crash at the Olympic Games. Vonn says the fractures in her leg left her with compartment syndrome. Had it not been identified and corrected with surgery, doctors may have had to amputate it. Dr. Tom Hackett traveled to Italy with Vonn because she was skiing with a torn ACL in her knee. Vaughn is still immobile, and her bone fractures will likely take a year to heal. Well, Lent is in full swing, and seafood counters are busier as many Christians give up red meat on Fridays. That spike in demand is driving up some wholesale costs, with Circana reporting fish prices jumped about 30%, while Labor Department data showing frozen seafood prices were already up nearly double digits. Nikel Williams shows us if the higher costs are being passed on to you.
Lenten season is in full swing, and now more Americans are seeking out seafood counters.
On Fridays during Lent, people fast from red meat.
Kathleen Halsey owns Kathleen's Cat in Atlanta, Georgia. Gael Majuram works here. He tells us they've been busy icing, cutting, wrapping, and selling all kinds of fish to new and familiar faces.
Springtime is definitely an increase of customers.
Many fish markets see this spike in demand this time of year. But does the surge mean you'll spend more for your fish of choice? Halsey says that really depends on where you shop. When her suppliers pay more, she does too. But no matter what changes with supply and demand, she tries to keep her prices the same.
You can get it at a really good price.
Audra Miller says that's one of the reasons she keeps coming back.
Wednesday is the special BOGO day. They have a special freezer. You can get a buy one, get one frozen fish.
Although the Lenten rush is just getting started and prices from now to Easter are uncertain, Miller says she's happy prices won't be a problem for her here.
They care about the community and they care about who they, work with. And that's meaningful to me.
In Atlanta, Nikel Williams, CBS News.
Tonight, Iberville Parish leaders will host their second ever Black History program. The program will feature guest speaker Louisiana Supreme Court Justice John Michael Guidry. It starts in a little less than an hour at 6:30 at the Carl F. Grant Civic Center, and everyone is invited.